I'm trying something new with the background, but I feel like it looks like I'm filming a hostage video. Anonymous for the Voiceless are holding me captive because they found out I wear secondhand leather and silk, and I also might have had a granola bar with honey in it. They demand to be paid in 10,000 Beyond Burgers. Please, someone help me. So this type of video essay response would have been a lot more relevant if I had filmed it, I don't know, like a month ago. But I think that when we're talking about veganism and intersectionality, that's a topic that's always relative, regardless of what vegan goes on social media and says that the only thing that they care about is animals, you know? Before getting into the video, I want to give a shout out to All My Echo vegan shoes. They have sponsored a previous video of mine, and you can watch it over here. The link in that video was to a Kickstarter campaign. They now have an official website where you can go and buy their shoes, because I had a lot of people asking me how do they buy those shoes. So yeah, you can just go and click the link in the description box and get yourself a pair of super cute and super sustainable and ethically made vegan sneakers. To start off, I am vegan. I was a heavy meat eater before going vegan. Meat was probably one of my favorite foods to eat. I went vegan to lose weight. Like, straight up, full transparency. I did not go vegan because I cared about animals or the environment. That's something that followed suit later after I watched documentaries like Cowspiracy and Forks Over Knives, What the Health. So veganism for me has always been as intersectional as my knowledge has allowed it to be. In the past on my social media, I have portrayed myself as a stereotypical skinny white girl that does yoga and eats smoothie bowls and travels to Bali. And I used that trend to kind of grow my platform. I don't think very successfully, because I was always doing the more big fat Greek broke version of this lifestyle. For example, like I went to Bali and halfway through my trip there, I got pneumonia, and of course I didn't afford travel insurance, so I didn't have travel insurance. So I just stuck it out for pretty much 2 weeks, getting sicker and sicker until I could catch my flight back to Greece and get treated in a hospital here for free. I do understand the criticism that is constantly directed at these privileged white vegan smoothie bowl eating yogis. That lifestyle is pretty expensive and pretty unattainable for most people. Yet at the same time, I feel like we maintain this stereotype as the face of veganism, when in reality, first off, this trend has died. No one's really watching What I Eat in a Day vegan videos with girls eating 7 bananas every day and doing yoga in the morning and meditating and then like going back to yoga and then smoothies and then more meditation. No one's really doing that anymore. It's not trendy anymore, yet we still keep that stereotype as the face of veganism, when in reality, by perpetuating this stereotype, I feel like we are erasing every single person that isn't like that doesn't live that lifestyle, yet at the same time they're vegan. There's vegans from here in Greece to Singapore to Gambia. They have completely different lifestyles, completely different budgets, completely different vegan identities. They represent veganism in so many diverse ways. And the only reason why we really see these vegan, white, smoothie bowl eating yogis as the face of veganism is because we all follow them online. We are the ones that made their platforms as big as they are because we wanted to be like them, and we were the ones that are really at fault for making them the face of veganism, because we were not interested in finding diverse faces to represent this movement online. I don't know who needed to hear this rant, but I just had to say it. Another misconception about veganism, which is now a negative one, is that you would think that because someone adheres to the vegan philosophy, that means that they were already compassionate and knowledgeable about pretty much every other cause, and learning about veganism gave them the opportunity to expand their compassion towards now animals as well, which is very much not the case. From what I've observed, many vegans bypass any interest in human rights and they just go straight into an obsessive investment in animal rights. I started off like that as well until I was faced with my own hypocrisy when I realized that I was so passionate about wearing vegan materials, and yet at the same time I knew nothing about the conditions of the workers making these vegan clothes. In my opinion, non-intersectional veganism is hypocrisy in a lot of ways. So this is the response of a non-intersectional vegan, like Freely, for example. Freely would say that no living being on Earth is suffering as much as animals are. No Holocaust has ever been as terrifying and as disgusting as the animal Holocaust. Animals are the most innocent, they're dying in bigger numbers, and she would probably say, you know, you're being a speciesist, stop being a speciesist, being a speciesist is worse than being a racist. And I think we get the point. I'm not gonna sit here and debate those points because even though I disagree with them, I think they really are a matter of perspective. If you are not a speciesist and you believe that all animal life is equal to human life and all animal life is equal regardless of the species, then that's the philosophy that you adhere to. Personally, I am a speciesist, For me, a cat's life is always going to be more important than a chicken's life, and a human life is always going to be more important than an animal's life. Unless that human is like a fascist leader or something, then the value of their life for me is lower than a worm. That's my personal perspective, which other people don't agree with. A lot of people believe that regardless of how evil you are and how destructive your impact is on the world, that your life matters equally to every other life. And I really don't think there's a way to debate this because it is a matter of opinion, it is a matter of perspective. But what I am going to say is that let's just take for granted that the animal holocaust is the worst, and basically contributing to animal liberation should be our numero uno priority. So in order to liberate all animal life, we would have to make as many people vegan as possible. In order to do that, you need to make people as privileged as possible, because guess what? If someone is still struggling to pay their bills, to get food on the table, to have any free time in order to educate themselves on these issues, then these people are not going to go vegan. How can you convince people who don't have their basic needs met to care about the basic needs of another species? Caring about anything is a privilege that is here in the West predominantly rewarded to white people, people that are wealthier regardless of their race. And until we recognize that, until all people have reached a similar level of privilege, then there's no way all people are gonna go vegan. And the only way to get all people to an equal level of privilege is through supporting Black, Indigenous, and people of color, supporting the homeless, the LGBTQ+ community, refugees, people living in poverty, standing against your government if it's involved in imperialist warfare like the USA. And to get even more specific, there's even the form of financial warfare that cripples a country in debt and forces it to completely destroy its educational system and create a whole nation of people that have access to lower quality education. And guess what? Lower quality education results in less opportunities in life, less privilege, and less possibilities to go vegan. I think it would be very narrow-minded of us to think of veganism as an isolated topic, as an island that is not connected to any other issue. So this is a great opportunity for me to bring up the portrayal of veganism on the TV show I May Destroy You, in the 7th episode of the series called Happy Animals. It's a fantastic series. Definitely check it out. So the main character, Bella, is hired as a spokesperson / influencer for Happy Animals, which is a vegan brand selling things like t-shirts, mugs. And in this episode, we see a criticism of corporate veganism, which I'm going to discuss later in this video, and also the connection between class and animal consumption. I'm just going to hold my notes, okay? I have notes. I just can't look down there anymore. Exposed. I'm reading from a script. So veganism was basically brought up at a party, and one of Bella's friends said this: "Why must the white man chop at the neck when the Africans only now are beginning to swallow?" It was very poetically said as a counter-argument against veganism. I see that perspective, but I do have an opposite perspective to offer here, which comes from my Greek background again. So historically, the traditional Greek cuisine has always been very plant-based. But that changed after the 400 years of slavery to the Ottoman Empire. The Ottomans were using heavy taxation on those under their rule, making them poorer and poorer as the rich Ottomans grew richer and richer. And more wealth leads to a cuisine that is higher in meat and dairy, and that also started translating to the Greek cuisine. So once Greeks had more access to money, they started incorporating these traditional Turkish, Ottoman dishes into their own diet, and that led to dishes like bifteki, souvlaki, kebab, galaktoboureko, all are derived from the Ottoman Empire and are now the staples of the Greek diet. This traditional meat-heavy diet is the diet of our ancestors' oppressors, and the same applies to many countries in Africa and in Asia, where the traditional dishes are predominantly plant-based. So historically, it's the rich, the colonizers, the oppressors that have had the heavy meat and dairy diet, but it's also the ones that have paid for it with their health, since higher consumption of meat and dairy leads to obesity, heart disease, and many other diet-related illnesses. I mean, in Greece, this yearning to consume the diet of our historical oppressors has led to this country having the second highest rate of obesity in Europe. Back to my notes, when we look more into dairy consumption, Greece was at the 16th place as highest milk consumers per capita globally in 2013, yet about 70 to 87% of Greeks are lactose intolerant. While another study found that 100% of Malawis and South Koreans are lactose intolerant, while in Denmark and Ireland, only 4% of the population is lactose intolerant. This is significant because milk is heavily subsidized almost globally, and us, the taxpayers, are the ones that are paying for the production of a product that we can't even digest. Specifically in the US, when it comes to food subsidies, corn and grain receive the largest at 61%, but that's because those are grown to feed animals. 3% goes to dairy, 2% goes to livestock, and a pathetic 0.45% goes for fruit and vegetables. I couldn't find statistics for the EU, but I imagine they're pretty close to this as well. There is outright discrimination and lack of intersectionality in our food systems. So now in regards to corporate veganism, in my opinion, the corporatization of any movement is also the biggest argument against said movement. In the case of veganism, that's done through capitalizing out of a movement for animal liberation, through selling products that are advertised as physical manifestations of that liberation, but without actually taking any part in supporting the core values of veganism. For example, a product certified as vegan might still contain palm oil, which is a plant-based oil that is tied to deforestation and the subsequent deaths of all animals residing in those forests. Another example is vegan activist merch, like t-shirts. Many of them are made in sweatshops and unsustainably, therefore not only operating as a tool for the vegan capitalist to make money, but also that capital is gained through the exploitation of labor and the pollution of the environment, making our planet not only more inhospitable for the mostly underprivileged people that are the ones predominantly affected negatively by climate change and pollution, but also the animals whose natural habitat is being destroyed. Capitalism, whether it's vegan capitalism or non-vegan capitalism, hurts animals. In the Happy Animals episode on I May Destroy You, they give another great example where under the facade of veganism and sustainability, recruiters are paid a higher fee if they bring influencers that are people of color into the company. The episode makes a statement on how people of color are tokenized in the corporate world, and they're merely used to create the illusion of diversity and inclusivity while financially rewarding the people that recruit them. Or the corporations that are operating over them are profiting off of the image of diversity. On the Vegan Vanguard podcast, episode 52, The Challenges of Political Organizing Within Neutral Vegan Spaces, with Menika Repka and Ihsan Otufi, they discuss the real-life lack of intersectionality of VegFest. Menika and Ihsan detail their experience working for VegFest and how the heads of the festival chose to push against intersectionality within their social media platform in order to build an ad-friendly, neutral corporate identity instead. And they did that in order to be as profitable as possible. Therefore, the focus of VegFest is no longer animal liberation, but the capitalization of animal liberation, which is another thing that was pointed out in this podcast about how so many vegan activists are making thousands on Patreon to give speeches about veganism, Veganism is almost used as a tool to travel the globe for free, and they're also making no effort to amplify local activist voices in the communities that they travel to. You can call this imperial activism or colonialist activism. It's not that they're bad people, but they are performing a form of activism without ever questioning its validity, its efficiency, their own intentions, and the impact that this form of activism has on other local activists. So let me give you another personal example here. I've been following Diet Prada for a while. I really like their account. I love the things that they post. I learn things from them. What I didn't like was when they spoke out about the latest Dior campaign, where they appropriate Greek history, they completely whitewash it. Diet Prada spoke out about this without really including us Greeks in that conversation. I mean, they could have reached out to Greek fashion designers. They could have reached out to a Greek sustainable fashion influencer that had a lot to say about this. But instead, they only gave their perspective on the topic without really including the culture that is actually being appropriated and taken advantage of through this ad campaign. And through this, I got a very tiny little taste of what it might feel like for people of color or indigenous people when there are white men coming into their community and basically mansplaining veganism to the people that they should be the ones speaking to. Basically, the message from this is to share your damn platform. And this is something that I'm also learning how to be better at as well. I've personally failed at reaching out at other activists, getting their point of view, amplifying their platforms, and that's something that I'm trying to work on. So now in regards to the impacts of animal agriculture on workers. In the US, I think we recently saw the ugliest face of this industry, where workers were forced to work in order to meet supply demand, even through COVID. It's usually immigrants or people of color working in very close quarters to one another and in very unhygienic conditions. And this is why the cases of COVID were so high within factory farm workers. Not only that, the majority of deaths from swine and bird flu are factory farm workers. By the way, factory farm workers and slaughterhouse workers are predominantly men, and men also happen to be more vulnerable to death by COVID. And simultaneously, men are the highest consumers of animal products, thanks to a century-long propaganda that masculinizes meat, because of course there's nothing more masculine than consuming the flesh and secretions of a dead female animal or a dead male baby animal. Where are the men's rights activists when you need them to speak out about gender discrimination in the food industry? It's almost like they only talk about male issues once a woman decides to first speak out about female issues. Maybe the only way for me to summon them and make them care about this issue is if I start talking about the gender pay gap. I don't know. Veganism is tied to capitalism, the patriarchy, racism, and social inequality. And any steps that are taken to weaken this system are steps taken towards animal liberation. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'd love to know what you think. Also, if you want to help me make more videos like this, you can consider supporting me on Patreon. You can get access to Patreon exclusive videos, private group chat, close friends on Instagram. Also, I do have a Depop shop where I put up all my secondhand clothes and accessories. I'm not buying anything anymore, so I'm just trying to get rid of the clothes that I already have. And also a huge thank you to all of the patrons supporting this channel. You're the reason why I can continue making videos. I am incredibly grateful. And yeah, thank you to everyone for watching this video, and I'm gonna see y'all soon. Bye.